that we bring you. They're designed specifically for you, our alumni, and are designed to bring you insider information like we're going to have today, and also access to innovative knowledge on business trends from our faculty experts and from really thought leaders across industries. As always, thank you to our sponsor, Northern Trust, who's represented in the Fort Worth market by Neeley alum Jeff King, who I believe is online today. So thank you very much, Jeff King, for your sponsorship of this program. And one other quick note, today's session is being recorded for those who weren't able to join us, so just for your frame of reference. For those of you who've attended previous sessions, you may be aware that frequently our content is brought to us by Neeley's Executive Education Program. And I have invited our friend Jim Roach, who is Executive Director of the Neeley Executive Education Program, to talk about our upcoming alumni session I think it's January 20th. Is that right, Jim?
That is right. Yeah. Thank you, Peggy, so much. And we're excited about today's conversation, of course. And by way of preview of coming attractions on January the 20th at lunchtime, our next topic will be connecting through the chaos, the importance of executive presence. It's probably no small understatement to talk about the world continuing to move through complexity, through business transformation, and dealing with small issues like the Great Reassessment. This topic will be a really good conversation around how leaders can show up in difficult times, how they can communicate and create connections that are authentic, how you show up virtually, how you show up in person, and really make sure that your message is heard amid the chaos. This is a panel conversation, and I'm going to be joined by two folks who bring a lot of capability and experience to the discussion. First, Lisa Northup will join us. She is Vice President, Human Resources and Talent Development for Elbit Systems. Lisa has a terrific perspective on this topic, not only from the day-to-day needs of their business, but also from a talent management perspective. And one of the things she considers is how do we get people ready for a next level assignment in the C-suite? So executive presence comes up right in the middle of that conversation. We're also going to be joined by Eric Harris. Eric is CEO of MindHandle and GatherRound, a digital marketing firm. They spend a lot of time, as you might guess, thinking about communication and storytelling by ways of creating connections with audiences, with stakeholders, and with your employees. So it'll be a robust conversation. We're very much looking forward to that on the 20th of January. And as always, we offer many things like this in our executive education programs and suites, and we're very happy to have you join us there if you're interested in more information. And of course, our alumni receive a 30% discount when they attend our program. So we'll look forward to that on the 20th of January. Peggy, thanks.
Thank you so much, Jim. And just for your frame of reference, you will have a follow-up email from this for everyone who registered for today's event, and there'll be more information about the January 20th event in that. So let's move on to today's event. We have a good number of folks joining us today, so we're going to handle our chat a little bit differently. If you have questions for Dean Pullen and Brenda Cline, please send those to me in chat directly. And at the end of the session, we will go through as many of those questions as we possibly can. Let's talk a little bit about our speakers for today. First of all, we're thrilled to have as our moderator, Brenda Cline. Brenda is the Chief Financial Officer of the Kimbell Art Foundation, which owns and manages the Kimbell Art Museum, but also is independent trustee and chair of the board of the American Beacon Funds. And I'm going to have to read this so I make sure I don't miss anything. Overseeing 29 equity, fixed income, and alternative mutual funds. Very impressive. Additionally, Brenda serves on the board of directors for Tyler Technologies and Range Resources Corporation, which are both New York Stock Exchange listed companies. Previously had served as an audit senior manager with Ernst & Young and as a CPA to boot. So if that weren't impressive enough with that professional background, one of the reasons we asked Brenda to join us today is she is also a TCU Neeley alum, TCU Neeley spouse, former parent, advisor, and serves on the TCU Board of Trustees. So thank you so much, Brenda, for joining us.
Thank you.
And also here today, of course, is our very own Dean, Daniel Pullin, who is the John B. Roach Dean of the Neeley School of Business. And also, I don't know if everyone realizes, is an active professor as well, teaches. He's a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation here at Neeley. He came to us in May of 2019. Timing was kind of interesting there, right, Daniel? From the University of Oklahoma, where he had served as the Dean of the Price School of Business there. Prior to that, worked in global consultancy with McKinsey & Company, and then also the private equity firm Hicks, Muse, Tate, and First. I think One of my favorite things about Daniel and his background, though, is the multiple awards he's received for teaching, innovation in business, and academic integrity. I think that's very impressive. Been recently recognized by Fort Worth Inc. as one of the most influential people in Fort Worth. He holds his undergraduate degree from the University of Oklahoma and the MBA from Harvard, and then returned to Oklahoma to get his JD. So again, equally impressive folks leading this conversation today. So without further ado, Brenda, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you for those very kind words and good introductions. We appreciate it. Well, I'm so excited about our topic today and to hear more about the strategic plan for Neeley. And as Peggy said, as an alum, as a parent of 2 alums out of the Neeley School, I've been watching the growth and development of the Neeley School for a very long time. And it's been super exciting, but I'm even more excited to hear today about the plans and where we're going in the future. But I thought it might be appropriate to start with grounding that in the past. So can we talk about where we are now and kind of how we got to where we are now?
Yeah, I mean, I think let's start in, sort of the, with the namesake, maybe, right? We've
like
got,
that idea.
this MJ Neeley School of Business. And if you think about Mr. Neeley, who I did not have the fortune of meeting, but I've talked to so many people over the last 3 years that knew him very well and knew his spirit and his commitment to TCU and specifically the business school. I mean, here's someone that was on the board of trustees for 22 years, someone that invested certainly capital, but time and mentorship in our students. I think it was Chancellor Tucker who described him as the most important contribution he made. Wasn't financial, it was through inspiration as to what we could be. And that inspiration, I think, is today embodied in our Neeley Promise. And I know it was circulated on some of the slides earlier before we all got on, but it's simply this. It's a brand promise that we make to all of our stakeholders every day. And it reminds us that the true asset of the institution of the business school is the human. So our promise is to unleash human potential with leadership at the core and innovation in our spirit. And when I think about leadership and I think about innovation, and I know that Mr. Neeley himself was involved in starting over 30 different companies, right? The consummate entrepreneur. You couldn't have imagined a better namesake to set the tone for what inspiration may bring. And as you look at the history, one of my favorite people at the Neeley School is Dr. Bill Moncrief, who has been the Senior Associate Dean for many years, Department Chair of Marketing, a number of roles. And he's kind of the in-house historian, if you will, of the Neeley School of Business. And so he's got this wonderful talk that he gives at every faculty and staff orientation when we welcome new leaders into the Horned Frog family. And he talks about these 3 different chapters in the history of Neeley, sort of the pre-2000 era, where we're very small business school, 1,500 students at the most, 25 to 30 faculty, regionally focused, probably not nationally recognized to a great extent. And then the emphasis that we've placed on innovation and scholarship starting around the year 2000. And how that was starting to lift our academic profile and attract and retain and propel really talented faculty from all corners of the country, all corners of the globe. And then how we started to, see ourselves appear in some rankings, much to maybe some people's surprise. And that itself was inspiring and got people excited. And so many people co-invested, and it gave us the chance to really in 2020, really just before the pandemic, opened the Hayes Business Commons, which for the first time, consolidated a total of 5 distinct business buildings in one complex, including 3 new structures: Hayes Hall, Sumner Hall, and Shattuck Auditorium. And if you think about the investment of our alumni and our friends, and certainly Spencer and Marlene Hayes themselves, so prominently, they've really created a top 10, top 15 business facility, physical plant, anywhere in the country. And now we have the ability to lift our national profile, recruit the most amazing faculty, the top students, and dream. And I think that I found that TCU is the kind of place where if you can dream it, you can do it. And so I'm excited to be just a part of this 3rd chapter using Moncrief's rubric. And I think that the strategic plan that hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about, opens the door to additional inspiration and possibilities.
Thought about all those chapters. I've been here through all those chapters. It's been, that's a fun way to look at it. No, I appreciate that. So, I mean, as we look forward, what kind of industry trends are you seeing that's going to help shape how we move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just like any entrepreneur, professor of entrepreneurship, or any business leader, you really, you have to be sensing the marketplace, right? If you're not, moving forward, you're falling behind. Exactly. And so I think we do a really good job of listening to the marketplace, more so than most business schools. I think our faculty, our partners in that, the amazing alumni and boards of advisors that give us feedback on sort of where the market may be going. So we're looking at a lot of, quite literally mega trends in our society. I mean, COVID certainly accelerated a number of those. We've mentioned entrepreneurship already, but, the uptick in entrepreneurship and innovation is something to be noted. And I think in the third quarter of 2020, there were 1.5 million more applications for new business starts in this country than the prior year alone. Right. So America, and we can talk about the world in a minute, but America has, renewed interest in entrepreneurship. And if that's what's going on in our society, we need to be building backwards from that, a really great entrepreneurship program to prepare our students to have the experience and confidence and network and agility to invent the companies that need to exist, but don't today. So we're paying a lot of attention to that. Certainly, the concept of the global supply chain and its disruption, and the interconnectedness of that's back on the table, sort of forget politics, like from an intellectual perspective, the interconnectivity of the global supply chain and what needs to happen from a risk management perspective moving forward. So we're looking at a lot of that. Of course, we have a top 15 supply chain management program in Neeley, and so we're very well positioned to take advantage of that trend. Certainly digital transformation, growth of e-commerce. I was reading a stat not too long ago that had projected that 24% of retail sales would be done online by 2024. It turns out that by 2020, 33% were done online, right? And obviously COVID was accelerator to that, right? But we have to understand about customer behavior, how people are making buy-sell decisions, and equip our students to have the requisite skill set to market and fulfill and drive customer satisfaction thereafter in that growing trend. Obviously there's lots of things that we have to pay attention to from a responsibility perspective, whether that's environmental or social, or even from a governance perspective. ESG is a big trend that we're mapping against. In fact, this fall we just launched a graduate certificate in ESG, one of the very first business schools in the country to do that, because we have to prepare our students to be conversant in that language and be able to lead and understand the importance, whether it's capital acquisition or talent acquisition, or even vendor management and customer satisfaction. That's a growing topic. And so I'm really proud of this business school, because we are market driven. We do position ourselves to run a business school that operates at the intersection of the academy and industry. And I think if we do that, then it gives us a better chance of not only taking advantage of this economic miracle of a marketplace that we have here in the greater Fort Worth, Dallas area. It's the number 4 market in the country. It's the fastest growing market in the country. And so how lucky are we, right, to be situated right in the epicenter of that activity? And so if we're not running a business school at that intersection, then we're definitely leaving value on the table.
Well, I love the way you've identified what's important to the marketplace in the industry, and as we prepare our students for that. And I know, particularly in the world I live in, this whole ESG thing, you can't pick up anything and read that doesn't have that topic. Right. So that's I didn't realize we had started that program. So yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. Just this fall.
So taking those expectations, these trends, the macro forces, et cetera, how do you put that into the academy for our students?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, you kind of triangulate it, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the macro, trends that are going on in the world and the business community. Right. And then you also have to look at sort of the micro trends that are going on in business education itself. And then how do you marry those two? Right. And then how, and this is maybe getting ahead of it a little bit, but then how do you take the insights from that intersection and then turn that into action through a strategic planning process, and then, goals and initiatives and so on. So we're paying attention to the business marketplace. We have a great leadership team at the Neeley School, department chairs, associate deans, individual faculty who themselves are sensing the marketplace, looking at peers and aspirants to make sure that we understand the trends in business education. And one of those trends that we're capitalizing on and taking advantage of and broadening our impact with is the concept of lifelong learning. I think Peggy mentioned it in the intro. Just because you think you're investing, 4 years of tuition and earning an undergraduate credential, or maybe 2 years at the master's level, increasingly 1 year at the master's level, that doesn't mean that that's just a transactional relationship, right? I mean, your affinity and affiliation with TCU and specifically the Neeley School, it should accrue a lifetime of benefits, right? There should be a long tail of value add. People like me, I mean, I'm always asking for, philanthropy, and we hire our students and maybe take an intern or two, right? You expect that from me, and I try to do it with as much civility as possible. But it has to go both ways, right? And, there has to be some reciprocity for it to be a real relationship and a real transformational engagement. And so we're very, very committed. I think actually, the Alumni Advantage series is really good.
What we're doing
what we're doing right now is, part of that exchange of value, because if we do that, hopefully our alumni and our parents and our friends and our corporate partners will, not only think fondly of us, but spread the word, and talk about how they have the opportunity to continue to be upskilled and reskilled and engaged and feel a part of this incredibly connected community that's been built here for many, many decades. So whether it's Alumni Advantage Series, exec ed opportunities, or creating really powerful career lifting master's programs, specialty master's programs that students can engage in a flexible way at all times of their careers and lives. I think embracing the need for our alums and the broader workforce to have the career agility to stay relevant as the world changes as quickly as it has been and probably will continue to be is a real trend that we need to be paying attention to. And I think you see a lot of that embodied in the strategic plan that we're working on. And oh, by the way, on the strategic plan, this is actually part of that, right? So you think it's obvious to roll out some 64-page PowerPoint and it's set and done. No, this is wet clay, folks, right? And you're a big part of this process. You're every bit of a stakeholder as the dean of the business school or the most accomplished faculty member or the president of the student body or what have you, right? You're in the mix. And so, one of the things I probably Peggy will cover later, but in response to what you hear today, we want your feedback. I think we'll give everyone and others that couldn't join us on the call the chance to complete a survey and give some feedback on where the Neeley School should be going, what you're proud of, what we can do better at, and those kinds of things. And then we'll incorporate that, as we look into the spring semester before finalizing it and then rolling it out in a more formal way. So thank you for, rolling up your sleeves and being our thought partners and helping us strengthen sort of the hypotheses that have been generated, thus far.
Well, and that's what makes the strategic planning process so all-encompassing and time-consuming is getting input from all these different stakeholders. I know most of us probably as business professionals have had some experience in building strategic plans. Maybe I should say the painful process of building strategic plans. I mean, I think you've kind of gone over it. I mean, you've tried to incorporate input from a variety of stakeholders. I don't know if you have any more comments about this, the process that you've gone through that might be helpful to lay a foundation before you talk a little bit about where we are on it.
Yeah, well, let me maybe take one step back from that. Let me just talk about why. Why we're doing it, right? Sure. Because maybe it's maybe it's almost perfunctory to everybody's got to have a strategic plan because you're supposed to have a strategic plan because strategic plans happen. I don't know, but there's no reason to go through all of that unless there's a lot of substance behind the why to do it. We've and there are a lot of forces right now that are, I think, combining to sort of, punctuate the point that now is the time. And I think the easy answer would have been, well, we're still in the pandemic and it goes up, it goes down, and who knows? And, we're just trying to keep the lights on and ensure instructional continuity. And, we'll get to strategy later. But I'm just like, no way, this is like exactly the right time to do it, because if we do it when everybody else is sitting on the sidelines, we're going to be ahead, right? I think we're going to have a chance to further distance ourselves from the competition and really do right by this, by our students, number one, this institution, and in the broader communities that we serve. And so when I think environmentally, so much, if not everything, has changed in business. And so if that's true, I mean, COVID accelerated, but otherwise, if that's true, shouldn't business schools change too, right? Shouldn't business schools, adapt?
That was the exact word I was going to say.
And so why would we even think that we're going to be relevant and on market I mean, this is a business school, right? So we should mark if we don't move with the times. And so I think it's very, very important to stay in step with industry, particularly given that we, sit in this amazing metro area. So that's one reason. The other reason is to think about, and there are a lot of headlines around sort of the industry of higher ed and the stress that's put on, the historic financial models of many institutions. And certainly TCU, we've grown so much and have done such a great job of really carving out a very powerful value proposition that, I think we're faring better than most. But you also have to think about, okay, from a risk management perspective, right? What might we do to better control, better shape our future, even from a financial perspective, as it pertains to higher education? There's a great McKinsey study out there, not a great one because the data's kind of tough, but they were predicting that the majority of both public and private universities over the last year had a budget shortfall of over 5%, and in some cases even more alarming than that. And so that may not be the case with the TCU, but it could be the case with a lot of other competitors. And so why sit back and just watch that happen instead of playing offense and really being creative and using the business sensibilities that our faculty and leadership have been trained. I mean, that's what we do to take greater control of our future. And so that's another good reason to embody that in an actionable and aspirational strategic plan. The third is in an environment where resources may not be as plentiful, whether that's in higher ed as a whole or at any individual institution, it's always smart that if you're a business unit or a component part of a broader enterprise, and the business school is a component part of Texas Christian University, to really align what we do with the overall vision of the enterprise. And we have an absolutely fabulous strategic plan at the TCU level. It's called Vision and Action Lead On. It's one of the things that really attracted me 3 years ago to look at this opportunity from a career perspective, because I thought it was very forward looking, it was clear, it was actionable, and it gave me a lot of hope that the momentum that I had seen over the last 20 years at TCU is going to continue for the next 20 and beyond. And so I'm excited about that plan. But what I saw a bit, to be candid, is that Neeley was not as aligned as we could be with those overarching pillars. And so if we operate as a unit in a broader enterprise and we want to be at the front of the line, whether that's to ensure the impact of TCU moving forward, or be the front of the line for resources that might be fungible and that can help us capitalize the growth of the school, then we better get in alignment, right? And really make sure that it's unmistakable that the business school, by executing this strategic plan, hits these 4 goals at the institutional level, and that we're a tailwind for the overall university to achieve its aspirations. And so getting that alignment is a big part of what we're doing. Another one that's important, and it's probably not thought of a lot through the strategic planning process, which sometimes people go, oh, another strategic plan, right?
Like I said, painful.
Right, painful, right? Is our reality in the Neeley School. So I mentioned the Hayes Business Commons, fabulous top 10, top 15 facility in the country. The problem is that to build the facility, we had to kick everybody out of old Dan Rogers Hall and move them into like mobile home trailers, no joke. And people were scattered all over the place. We didn't have that connected culture, and that construction process took about 3 years. And then we were all very excited because we cut the ribbon on the Hayes Business Commons January 31st of 2020. And then I sent everybody home March 13th of 2020. So we got 5 good weeks out of this puppy, and then it's been a year and a half. And now we're finally getting, back together. But I'm no mathematician, but 3 years apart and a year and a half, I mean, it's almost half a decade of cultural disruption. And so we're really using the strategic plan, not just for the outcome and the performance metrics and how we, bucket and prioritize what we do. We're using it in a way to reconnect our culture and get people back together and talk about the substance, but also remind ourselves that we're better together than we are apart.
So you're saying the process is as important as the outcome?
100%. 100%. And you can see it already. We've got all these goals and task forces, and people are rolling up their sleeves and they're dreaming. And then my job is, okay, we got to put some stuff back. We got a bucket here and make sure it, we can't do 175 different initiatives. Right? Exactly. But I love that, right? That's, just like Mr. Neeley, that is a spirit of innovation. And that's our promise. And so I love seeing this place activated and the intellectual vitality that this process has brought back to the table.
I love that. And really, I want to thank you on behalf of alums and all the stakeholders for your energy, your vision to take this time and do it and get the alignment with the university, how important that is for the largest college at TCU.
Yeah.
So important. So thank you for putting all that together and putting the plans in place in the process, because I do think your outcomes will be even greater than a plan. The human capital outcomes will be amazing.
Oh, I appreciate that. I definitely hope you're right. We're gonna design for that outcome for sure.
Wow. What a great process. And I know it's not done yet.
No, so. It's been, but I will say it's been really inclusive, right? It's been something that, and this is part of it, right? You're part of it now, the process is still going. We've started with every single faculty member, every single staff member, and they gave them a chance to comment. We did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we asked every single employee to do one for Neeley, and to do one for their particular area, whether that was an academic department or their administrative role. And then we asked them to do one for themselves, right? To really gain insight. Because there's such a human element to it that you really want to understand what is on everyone's mind. And since we've been displaced, right, it's been harder to really say, okay, well, what are some product, the aspirations of our people, and what does amazing look like to them? Because if the promise is to unleash human potential, certainly that's our students, certainly that's our alumni, but it's also our personnel. And so really having a sense to collect a lot of data, synthesize some data, and really understand where the organization is. And then from there, start to hone that into very specific goals and supporting strategies, then ultimately tactical initiatives was, I think, very valuable. It took a lot of time. We actually started as early as the beginning of the summer of 2021, and that data was distilled into 2 full-day working sessions where we brought the insights and the feedback together amongst our internal leadership team, inserted market data. We looked at a lot of peers and other institutions, seeing what they're doing, tested that, conducted proven ideation exercises to collectively unlock even additional inspiration, and then presented the distillation at our faculty staff annual planning retreat, which is sometimes just here's what we're going to do this year, but this time it's like, here's what we're going to do for the next 5 years, and what do you think? So we got to synthesize it that way. We subsequently had a student leader town hall with our Neeley leadership program, and we syndicated some of those ideas with them and got the student voice. We presented to the Neeley Board of Advisors through a half-day working session this fall. So we have, those alumni and parents and friends that are involved in that very tangible way. We have that voice. We're doing the Alumni Advantage series today with a follow-on survey. And I think very quickly, as we, it's hard to imagine we're halfway through the academic year, but certainly as we, get into the spring semester and look ahead for the next year, I think that we will have run a very inclusive, very deliberate process to unleash all of our human potential and to get the best ideas, prioritize correctly, such that we can take action and continue to extend our lead in those points of difference that we're very proud of.
Well, a very thoughtful process and moving forward. Do you want to move to the components of the plan, or how would you like to go on that?
I think, we've talked a little bit about process, but I think that there's a lot of meat here.
Yeah.
And, again, it's not set in stone. So all of you on the call and beyond have an opportunity to affect this. But right now we're working on 5 goals, 5, manageable. They're pretty audacious in some ways, but they're 5 goals, and they work together and they're mutually reinforcing. And each of the goals has a task force behind it, and there's a prominent Neeley leader that's running a collection of folks to make it very tangible and real. But the first goal, and this is a business school, and this might sound crass, but it's true, so I'm going to say it. The first goal is to grow revenue.
It's reality.
It's the reality,
It's
right? I mean, that is the state of higher education today. As tuition and fees rise, the ability to pay goes down. And so we have to think about new and interesting ways to keep attracting the most talented students and increasingly the more diverse student body, as well as continue to pay market competitive salaries for our personnel and provide wraparound student support services. And so we want to make sure that we can be very market oriented through growing our graduate programs, growing our executive education opportunities, being in step with the $1 billion capital campaign, the Lead on Capital campaign. The Neeley School should be a very important part of that, to make sure that financially, anything else we want to do in the plan, that there is a pathway to capitalizing that. Because if we can't capitalize the aspirations, it's going to be very unlikely.
If you can't fund it, that's not fun.
It's not fun.
When you can't dream, it's hard to dream if you can't believe you can actually effectuate it.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that, we've been growing, and that's a great thing. And it's a first class problem, by the way, right? We've grown 26% in just the last 5 years alone in the number of majors at the Neeley School of Business.
Well, didn't I? Yeah, I heard from you yesterday. The Neeley School, the finance majors, is the #1 major in the entire university.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's phenomenal.
The largest major at TCU, right?
Yeah.
That's finance. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so that's great, and that's a better problem than the other thing. Trust me, folks. There are a lot of universities that are struggling to keep enrollments flat. And they're having to manage, in many cases, declination enrollments and adjusting their cost structure on the downside. We are having the opportunity to figure out how to digest this growth, because the value proposition and the outcomes that we're creating for our students, right, are resonating. Yeah. Right. You don't grow 26%, if you're not delivering, right? But that will only last if we can serve. So we have to be really thoughtful about growing revenue. Now, we also have to have smart resource management too. All right. So that's, making sure that we're getting the best utilization of our personnel, making sure that where we're spending with vendors and external third parties, that, we're getting a return on that investment, and that we're competing bids and those kinds of things. So none of that's particularly fun and exciting, but it is very much.
Well, it is for the accountant.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is a business school, so you can't just look at the revenue side. You also have to look at your cost structure and make sure you're being really good stewards of the resources in which you're entrusted. So that's really goal one. There are a lot of great examples that we could get into on how we're going to effectuate that. But the second goal is around leveraging our world-class faculty. I mentioned scholarship earlier. Our productivity per faculty member from a research perspective rivals that of the top business schools, and really squarely in the top 50 business schools in the country. And when you combine that productivity and the ability to generate business insights at that level with our marketplace, we have 24 Fortune 500 companies in the Fort Worth, Dallas metro, all in our backyard. Our ability to distance from others by putting our business insights into the hands of global practitioners, right, who can deploy and improve upon them, is really rarefied. And I think that if we can help shape the global practice of business, right, we've got to find, we've got to put the tools to match the talent on the faculty side, make sure they have the technology and the labs and the equipment and everything. But the relationships we can build in our marketplace and beyond give us a better chance to actually lift our reputation and as a go-to source for thought partnership and consultation and ultimately hiring and those kinds of things. And so we're very, very focused in goal number 2 about empowering our world-class faculty, right, to conduct research excellence, but not just research for research's sake, right? Research that's going to drive through how business is conducted moving forward. Our third goal is really about talent. Again, recognize the most important asset of the place is people. What do we need to do? And some of this is compensation related. Some of this is cultural related. But what do we need to do to attract, retain, and propel talent in an inclusive learning environment that is open to all and positions all students, faculty, staff, advisors, alumni, right, to be the most successful they can in the environment in which they operate? And so as part of our talent management strategy, we have a very forward focus on inclusive excellence. We believe that we should be a source of talent wherever we can find it, from whatever background, whatever starting point, and provide the tools and resources for all Horned Frogs to be as successful as possible. And that's why we recently opened one of the first 20 in the country offices of inclusive excellence that's actually situated inside a business school, not just left to, something at the institutional level that never really gets down to the individual student or the individual faculty, but something that is very much for the business school and for the future business leaders that we're preparing.
So you're focusing it starts at the student level and goes all the way through.
All the way through. And it's certainly about the students, but it's about all of us.
Well,
right?
exactly.
It's about all Horned
I think
Frogs.
too often we get focused on inclusiveness and diversity in a student level and managing that talent pool. And yet you're right, it needs to flow all the way through.
It's flowing all the way through. And, whether it's, what we're doing with our faculty from a training perspective, what we're doing, we're revitalizing our curriculum, and not just, we have one class on diversity or one class on inclusive excellence. It's being embedded in our core. It's going to flow through the entire curriculum. We have a whole committee that's working on that. To even culturally, we have amazing book clubs and meetups and get-togethers and speaker series, we're building a culture around inclusive excellence, not just, we have an inclusive excellence initiative. It's over there on the third floor back wing. It's right.
We're not checking that box.
No,
we are putting it into
correct.
Very nature of the school.
Absolutely, right.
Okay.
And that's what the market, this business school, that's what the market demands.
Exactly.
That's right. It's not just about altruism. It is, and it's the right thing to do, but it's also about companies and the talent that they're looking for, and not just underrepresented talent, but all talent needs to be prepared as culturally competent business leaders, because they're going to work in an increasingly diverse world. And if you're going to be successful, right, you have to be competent and be able to operate with people with different backgrounds, identities, and experiences than your own. And so if that's the reality, we've got to work back from that and bake that into everything that we do.
Because as you said, that's not something, I shouldn't say can't be taught, but certainly is difficult to teach. It has to be embodied into everything.
Absolutely.
Because it just grows within you.
Yeah.
So,
and you have to look at every decision you make, every action, every initiative with that lens. And if you do that, if you have the discipline to do that, then I think we'll use this as a point of difference to again to further separate. You mentioned students, so that's a goal 4, and it's about student success.
And I didn't even know that was next. So.
Yeah, well, that's good, right? See, we didn't script this, folks. But no, it's students, right? That's why we're here. And that starts with curriculum. We have to have a world-class global curriculum with increasing emphasis on experiential learning. We don't want to graduate another Horned Frog from the Neeley School that hasn't done something practical in her field of choice. We think that battle tests them. We think it makes them more marketable, more placeable upon graduation, more prepared to add value day one. And so we've been working very hard on our curriculum, making it very current, redesigning it with some core teaching principles, including critical thinking and creativity, innovation. We are upping the game from a quantitative rigor perspective, a lot of focus on technology, a lot of numbers. As an accountant, you'll appreciate that. Our foray into business analytics and fintech.
As I mentioned the new master's that you did with data analytics. What a fantastic new program that was.
Oh, it's been a home run for us. We're enrolling between 40 and 50 students in our first 2 cohorts. So the market is validating the idea. And this was, speaking of Mr. Neeley and innovation in the spirit and all that, that program probably wouldn't even be launched yet, but for COVID. Because here's what happened. We saw in the early days of COVID, sort of late spring 2020, we saw students' job offers getting pulled, right? Graduating students did all the right things, and had secured these amazing offers. And because of the disruption of the time, their jobs were melting away. And we're like, oh my gosh, how can we help them? And we're like, well, wait a second. What if we could create a 1-year pre-experience master's program to fill in some of these opportunities around quantitative analysis, data science, business analytics, and give them a bridge so that they can get through the COVID shock, upskill, and then be even more marketable. And so We sensed that we broke all the rules for all the right reasons and launched that in 3 weeks instead of 3 years, because
I think that's amazing.
academia can be a little glacial.
Really?
If you haven't heard right here, it can be a little glacial. And but we broke all the rules, and we helped those students, and those students have helped us, and they've gotten great jobs. The placement numbers.
Well, and it goes back to now the strategic goal. I mean, you're fitting all that like quantitative and data analytics into the academics. And it's to me, that's a great example of exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, well, thanks. And I think so. I think the curriculum is very exciting, and I could talk all day about curriculum because I'm a faculty member. That's what we do. But also what's going on outside of the classroom, like the student success services that we're wrapping around, the advising, the professional development, and the placement. And we already are a leader in placement. Our undergraduate starting salaries are in the top 15 in the country of any business school.
That's fantastic.
And we have great students. We have an amazing team. We've got a great market. There are a lot of reasons, right? But that's the market validating the worth of a Neeley graduate. And so we want to not stop there, and we want to make continuous investments to make sure that our students are being placed the most aspirational employers, whether they're right here in Fort Worth or they're anywhere in the world. So there's a lot of good strategies going on to continue to distance ourselves as a leader in placement. And then the fifth goal is really important to me, and I think it's something that harkens back to actually my interview when I came here, hoping to be the dean of the Neeley School. Someone on the committee, we were talking about the pros and cons, everything's going on. Someone on the committee said, we're the best kept secret in business education. I'm like, oh, we do have a marketing department, don't we?
I was going to say,
right?
Why is that a good thing?
Right. And I'm like, wait a second. Okay, I don't want to be the best kept secret ever, right?
Yeah.
And so it is in the goodness that and that I get to see every day as I walk in and out of the door. That should not be lost on the world. And so the fifth initiative is about brand. And so we've actually consolidated our external relations function, and now we're speaking with one voice. We're consolidating the various agency agreements so that we can have a really strategic approach to integrated marketing. We're being far more aggressive and targeted in how we're representing ourselves with our peers that drive perception and rankings and academic profile. And so there's a ton of work around brand. But we're not going to be the best kept secret in business education.
Yay.
Yes.
And
we're starting to see that, right? We're starting to see that. I mean, our rankings have been going up. I was told just last week that among the business schools that were ranked in the U.S. News undergraduate program, U.S. News in the top 100 in 2019, the Neeley School has moved up more than any other business school in the country, up 26 spots in just 2 years, right? So we're not where we want to be yet, but we're starting to see, right? We're starting to see, we're starting to see that lift and that recognition. And a lot of those rankings are driven by the perceptions of peers, other business deans and associate deans and those kinds of folks. So anyway, so we're laser focused on brand, but again, so it's kind of starting with, you got to capitalize your dreams, right? And then moving into translating high impact research to high impact outcomes that shapes the global practice of business, particularly given our marketplace, to a really aggressive talent management strategy, never forgetting about student success, and then finally making sure that the goodness that we know is not lost on the world. Those are really the big 5 goals of our strategic plan.
Tell our story.
Yeah.
Flash the frog. Or
exactly.
But no, I love that. And I do love your definition of the marketplace, the Fort Worth, Dallas marketplace here being at TCU.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
So these are, inspiring plans. We're very excited, and I know with everyone watching today, if they're all like me, how best can we help you? How best can we help Neeley? I mean, how can we be involved? We want to see these plans and these goals achieved. And I know it's not going to happen in a vacuum. It's going to take all of us. What can we do?
Well, I appreciate that. There are a few things. I'm a former strategy consultant, and so I think in frameworks, and everybody that's on our team here that's on this call will get tired of me saying this because I know exactly what I'm going to say. But as I think about how we engage externally with friends, alumni, parents, others, corporate partners, there are 3 C's and there are 3 E's, right? And the 3 C's are this. One is to communicate. So hopefully we're doing our job to create awareness of what's going on all the progress. Please communicate with those in your network in which you circulate, right? Be our brand ambassadors and talk about the Neeley School and its momentum and where it's going. People expect me, to talk my own book a little bit. That's what I do, but it's more credible sometimes coming from alumni and corporate partners and parents and otherwise when they're seeing that change be effectuated. So that's one C. The next was to convene. Like, we really are proud of our connected community, and so get involved. Like, you're getting involved today through this digital mechanism. There are also many on-campus mechanisms. I mean, we have amazing student mentoring programs. We're talking about inclusive excellence. We have an inclusive, and now endowed, thanks to the good folks at JP Morgan, endowed inclusive excellence mentoring program for students that are participating in those areas. We have a Neeley-wide mentoring program that has over 180 alumni that have signed up to mentor. 130 of them are mentoring one-on-one with individual students throughout the academic year. The other 50 or so are serving on mentoring panels and coming in both digitally and on campus to provide counseling and advice in a kind of a group setting. We have the Neeley Network program where we're going to be curating communities that are based upon industries, energy and healthcare and finance and those kinds of things that you can get involved in. So helping us convene and connect community is a very, very important opportunity. The third C is credential. So our academic profile is sometimes viewed through the lens of rankings. And we may not like rankings, but they're there, and people do make buy-sell decisions. Oh, I want to go to this school because it's higher ranked, or I won't interview for that faculty job because it's at a different tier and that kind of thing. And so oftentimes alumni are asked to complete ranking surveys. And so if you get prompt to do that, don't put that in your deleted file. Please, if you have the time and the inclination, please engage and help credential the Neeley School of Business through your voice and your perceptions. Moving to the E's.
Can I go back and
Sure.
ask one question? So on the convening, and I mean, if someone wants to take part in some of the mentoring programs, how do they contact? Well, how do we do that?
Oh, the amazing Peggy Conway.
Okay, there you go.
And so, and we're actually going to follow up on this.
Okay.
After the call, we'll follow up with everybody on
I just
these
want to make
very
sure everyone
specific.
knows, because to me, I mean, people, the one-on-one and the ability to be with students, that's what I love.
Yeah.
And, that's the best part about having kids that go to TCU. You get to meet
Yeah.
all the other
Yeah.
students and be a part of the atmosphere. And so I think people will really want to reach out. I'm sorry.
Well, if you love what
you.
Brenda Cline loves, call Peggy Conway. Right?
Okay, on to the E.
On
I'm
the E.
sorry.
So the first E is enroll. So if you have prospective students, undergrad, increasingly graduate students that might benefit in lifelong learning, formal executive ed programs, please send us a talent that's very much bound up in our business model moving forward and our ability to make a broader impact. Enlist is the second E. So hire, right? Take on an intern, hire one of our amazing Horned Frogs. They can run with anybody, I promise you. They're incredibly smart, they're driven, they're polished, and they're ready to, like I said, add value day one. So please view us as a go-to source of talent.
I can attest to that. In fact, I know that several of my interns are on the call today. So thanks for being on there, and I can attest. They do a fantastic job, and it's the highlight of our year when we have, for the period of time, we have had interns at the Kimbell Art Foundation. So
well, thank you for doing that and making sure that there's that continuity of professional development throughout the years. And then the last one, you expect me to say this, is endow, right? E, endow. So if you have the luxury of directing philanthropy, and we certainly would like for you to consider the Neeley School of Business. So much of our progress has been achieved through flexible funding, through good folks like yourself. One easy way to get involved is the Dean's Council. We have now our own annual giving society that tucks under the Clark Society at the institutional level. Some of you are members of the Clark Society. But 100% of your gift to the Dean's Council, which is an insider group, and there's all sorts of additional activities and information that goes to that group. We've had over 100 people join in just about 3 or 4 months since we launched it, so it's off and running. But it's a minimum $5,000 annual contribution. You can designate it to any part of the Neeley School you want to, or you can leave it at Dean's discretion, which is, of course, my favorite category.
You like that, right?
Yeah, but it's allowed us to pursue fast-moving opportunities. You know,
well, just like you said, you put a program together in 3 weeks. You can't project what you're going to need money for, so that to have your discretion is ideal.
Yeah. I mean the business analytics program is a good example. The partnership we have with the athletics department through the Neeley NIL program, 100% of our ability to start serving student athletes in this changed world, which strengthens the value proposition of becoming a student athlete at TCU, as well as allows the business school to broaden our impact and provide business education to a broader set of students than ever before, is based upon flexible funding. Because there's no line item in the budget. If somebody was thinking 3 years ago, oh, NIL is going to come down from the Supreme Court, and the next thing you know, no, you can't market time that stuff.
Right.
But we can be scrappy and flexible. We have been, and we could talk for a whole hour about that topic. And then there's all sorts of different campaign priorities and needs, and endowed chairs and centers of excellence, and on and on and on. But again, if you have the privilege of directing philanthropy, please consider the TCU Neeley School of Business. Laura Barclay is our director. We'll send out that information as well. So whether it is communicate, convening, credentialing, right, enlisting, enrolling, or endowing, 3 C's, 3 E's, there's so many opportunities to be a part of our, I believe, exciting future.
It is exciting. I feel like we should have, fireworks going behind us.
I know.
There's already been fireworks on this campus
That's
twice
right.
this week.
I'll
So I
call
feel
the
like
IT guys, right? How do we get
we should have had
Yeah.
more behind us today as well, but no. Thank you again for your energy, as I said earlier, your energy, your vision, and ways that we can all be engaged and be a part of it, because it just enriches our lives too.
Well, thanks for
So
being a great running buddy. Thanks for all that you do for Neeley and TCU and for
it
me.
is
And
totally my privilege, my honor and privilege. It is.
Well, Brenda and Daniel, you guys, there have been quite a few questions coming in from the group. I know we don't have time for many, so I'm going to try to summarize quickly. And Daniel, one has been, what are the 1 or 2 key things the Neeley School is missing that's really going to be helpful to you to move the needle, and that may be somewhat related to what keeps you up at night?
okay, yeah, I guess the 2 things are the same, right? So I think it's digesting growth, right? We've grown 26% in 5 years. We have not grown our faculty and staff sufficiency by 26% of that same amount of time. And so we can be resource optimizers and really good at it, to a degree, but at some point we need to continue to make sure that this amazing education stays just that. So making sure that we have talent to match the talent in our students is very, very important to me. And then I think that there's there's a great opportunity through our finance. You mentioned it was our largest major at the university. I know the finance faculty are kind of chomping at the bit to innovate in that curriculum. And I think that there are a lot of good things we can do from a depth perspective as well as a breadth perspective. Some of you may not know this, but DFW is now the 3rd largest private equity market in the country, just behind Chicago and of course New York, passing a couple of other cities out west. And so the importance of alternative asset investing is growing. And so if that's our marketplace and that's our largest major at the university, then we need to make sure our curriculum evolves to get there. And so we're working really, really hard with closing speed to make sure we're leading in that area.
And this is a somewhat related question. It's how do you balance all of this growth while still being sure we're maintaining quality of experience, quality of students?
Yeah, I think that's the rub, and it's really hard. So there are some, sort of smart decisions you can make to wring out efficiencies, and we've spent 2 years doing that in a way that I think has preserved for quality, but it's not everything that it needs to be. Right? You just can't outrun the math. And so I would say the engagement of alumni and business leaders like those on this call are helping us. Many of you are providing a surrogate service as adjunct instructors in our Exec Connect program, where you come inside the life and times of the school and help become a faculty member for a day or 2 or a whole semester. To help us ensure that students are educated at the highest quality and are expanding their networks, and that the professional opportunity set is widened at every turn.
Thank you. And thank you both very much for letting us spend this hour with you. It was very informative, very helpful. Quick reminder to everyone, you will receive an email from us tomorrow that outlines all these different opportunities that Daniel and Brenda spoke about, so that you'll know how to engage with us. And we look forward to working with you. And it will also include, one more time as a reminder, the opportunity to register for our January 20th session on connecting through the chaos, the importance of executive presence. So thank you all for joining us today.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
And come on.
Go Frogs!